Let's move into our meditation. Go ahead and find a comfortable seat. We've got a couple extra cushions and a mat, so feel free to do what you need to do to make yourself comfortable. There's chairs in the back of the room as well. Beginning by finding a posture that feels both comfortable and awake. Sitting upright, allowing the spine to be gently lifted, or resting in a way that supports both ease and attentiveness. There's no perfect posture, just something that allows you to be here. And if it's okay, letting the eyes gently close or softening the gaze on the floor in front of you. Just taking a moment to arrive. You don't have anywhere to be, nothing else to figure out right now, just this moment of being here. The meditation will begin and end at the sound of the bell. Let's begin with a few deeper breaths together, taking a fuller inhale and a slow, steady exhale. A couple more times, again, breathing in and letting it go. Last one. Allowing the breath to return to its natural rhythm without needing to control it. Just noticing it. You might begin to feel the body sitting here, the weight of the body being supported, noticing points of contact, and gently scanning through the body, starting at the top of the head. Noticing any sensations here as we move down into the temples, the forehead, the eyes. Maybe releasing any tension that you carry in your jaw or your mouth. Letting the tongue fall away from the roof of the mouth. Softening anything that you might be holding as we move down the neck and shoulders. Allowing them to drop away from the ears just a little bit more. As we move down the arms, through the hands, letting them soften. Bringing attention into the chest and the belly, noticing as it expands when we breathe in and contracts when we breathe out. Softening in the belly and down into the hips and legs, into your feet. No need to change or force anything, just a simple awareness of the body as it is. And as we sit here, we begin to notice something simple but important. There are different qualities of our mind that can be present. Sometimes the mind feels curious or interested. Other times maybe a bit dull or distant. Sometimes there's a sense of effort or energy, while other times it might feel more calm. You don't have to search for any of these things or create them, but just beginning to notice what's already here. You might quietly ask yourself, what is the quality of my mind right now? And we're not looking for a right answer, but simply sensing. Maybe there's some restlessness or tiredness. Maybe the mind is feeling open, letting whatever's here be known. Let there be a gentle interest in the quality of the mind, not analyzing or fixing, just noticing. And as you notice, you may begin to see that awareness itself has kind of an intelligence, a natural ability to recognize what's present. And if the mind drifts, as it will, just returning to the moment. This is part of the practice. Noticing and returning. And from here, maybe allowing the practice to deepen just a little, not by doing more, but by becoming sensitive to what's unfolding. You might begin to notice that when you're present and attentive, something shifts. Perhaps there's a subtle sense of aliveness or lightness, or maybe a quiet sense of ease. And if that's here, letting yourself feel it, letting it be known without grasping or clinging. And if it's not here, that's okay too. Sometimes what's present in heaviness or distraction, maybe resistance, and that can be held with the same awareness. Seeing if it's possible to relate to whatever is here with a bit more curiosity. Almost like you're learning how your mind works moment by moment. You might notice that certain qualities support the mind in settling, while others lead to more agitation. And over time, we begin to intuitively sense what brings balance, not by forcing anything, but by being in relationship with experience. Letting awareness include both a sense of engagement, being here and interested, and a sense of ease, not pushing or striving. Allowing these to find their own balance. If things feel tight, perhaps soften. If things are feeling dull, perhaps we gently re-engage. There's no right formula, just listening and letting the practice be alive. As Sharon Salzberg reminds us, the healing is in the returning. So each time you notice you've drifted and come back, that is part of cultivation. That is the practice unfolding. We'll spend the next couple of minutes in silent practice, letting awareness be open and receptive, nothing to hold on to, and nothing to push away. The meditation will end at the sound of the bell. Thank you for your practice. So gently return to the room. Wonder if we can be reflective on how it felt to start and how it's felt to finish that practice. And so this week we're going to continue on in discussing a book called Mindfulness, A Guide to Awakening by Joseph Goldstein. And we are still in the chapter of Mindfulness of Dhammas, which is like half of the book. And so we've been exploring different categories that the Buddha offered as lenses for understanding experience. And so we talked through first the 5 hindrances, so the forces that cloud the mind. We talked about the different versions of cloudy water. If you can remember, there was dye, mud, things that can cloud the mind. And then we spoke about the 5 aggregates, the processes that create our sense of self. So form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. And tonight we move to something different, the 7 factors of awakening. And these factors are not obstacles or like diagnostic categories. They're qualities of the mind that support clarity, freedom, and insight. And so if the hindrances show us what obscures awakening, the awakening factors are the ones that show us what supports it. Joseph Goldstein describes them as mental qualities that incline the mind toward liberation. And so these are not abstract ideals. They're living qualities that can be recognized, nourished, and cultivated in practice, both on the cushion and off. I think of it similar to like watering a plant, tending to its needs, recognizing maybe it needs different soil or a different pattern of watering, maybe a different space in your house. So being open to receiving what those things are and cultivating it. So today we'll explore what are awakening factors, what are the 7 that the Buddha named, and how we can cultivate them. So the 7 factors of awakening appear throughout the Pali Canon, and I'm probably going to butcher this name, but in Pali it's Bodhijanga? Bojanga. Exactly what I said. And the word combines bodhi, or awakening or enlightenment, and anja, factors or limbs. So they are the qualities that make awakening possible. And in the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha instructs practitioners to observe these factors in a very practical way, in a very Buddha way. He says, when a factor is present, we know it's present. When it is absent, we know it's absent. And we learn how it arises and how it is developed. So in other words, the teaching is not about believing in awakening factors. It's about learning to recognize them in our own experiences. Goldstein emphasizes that these qualities are not something we force into being. Instead, they emerge naturally when the mind becomes balanced and attentive, revealing themselves to us when we are aware and open to receiving them. They're already part of the mind's potential. And I love this core belief that they're already there and that we just need to tap into it, be curious, investigate, and learn, because that seems far less daunting to me than trying to create something from scratch that I don't know. And so the Buddha spoke about these factors as medicines for the mind. In several discourses, he described them as qualities that bring the mind into harmony, balancing energy and calm, effort and ease. And so the practice becomes one of learning the mind. What strengthens my clarity and what weakens it? The poet Mary Oliver captures something of the spirit of attention when she writes, "To pay attention, this is our endless and proper work." The awakening factors begin with exactly that, attention, a willingness to see clearly what is present. And as the teacher Ruth King reminds us, awakening is not about becoming someone different. It's about remembering the clarity that is already here. The Buddha's teaching suggests that these qualities are not imported from the outside. They're revealed through awareness. And we can see that in small but powerful ways each time we meditate and practice here together. Meditation helps to focus our awareness, and from that, things are revealed. And it can look different for each of us, but I can probably say with some level of certainty that every time we get to discussion at the end, there has been some revelation, big or small, from at least one of us after the night is over. And so the 7 factors unfold almost like a progression, though in practice they support each other, they interact. And so the first is mindfulness, or sati. Mindfulness is the foundation of all the awakening factors. It's the quality of clear, non-forgetful awareness. So something that my ADHD does not know anything about. But without mindfulness, we cannot recognize any of the other factors. Mindfulness allows us to notice when the mind is contracted, when it's open, when the energy is present, or when calm is present. As Bell Hooks writes, the practice of love begins with the practice of attention. Mindfulness is that loving attention toward our experience. The second factor is investigation, or Dhammavikaya. Did I say that right? Vichaya. Exactly what I said again. Investigation is the quality of curiosity and inquiry. Rather than just observing experience, the mind begins to explore it. And when I think about that, my mind immediately thinks of like space travel, like my mind is somehow like space traveling, exploring the unknown, potentially new spaces of my mind, sometimes terrifying, but one that always helps me gain new ground and understanding. And so with investigation, questions naturally arise. What is this feeling? How did this thought arise? What happens when I hold this experience with awareness? Investigation transforms mindfulness from passive observation into living exploration. The Zen teacher Joan Halifax writes, "Curiosity is the doorway to compassion and wisdom." Investigation keeps practice alive and engaged. And now, as I talk about investigation, my gotta do everything right, rule follower part of me wants to be like, yeah, I can search it out and figure it all out. It's not about how much can I investigate, how much can I do it and get it right, because my mind investigates a lot, but that's not helpful. That's not helping lead me towards clarity. So it's an observation and a gentle investigation into what might be coming up. The third is energy. Energy is the quality of effort and vitality in practice. This is not strain or pushing. It's the energy that arises when we care about waking up. Waking up here being moving towards liberation. When investigation sparks curiosity, energy naturally follows. We become more interested in being present. The teacher, Pema Chodron, describes this kind of energy as the courage to stay present with whatever arises. It's the willingness to continue practicing even when experience is uncomfortable or uncertain. The fourth factor is joy or piti. Joy may seem surprising in a list of awakening factors, but when mindfulness, investigation, and energy are present, there can be a certain uplift of the mind that naturally arises. And this joy isn't dependent on external conditions. It's not a phenomena. It comes from the relief of being present rather than caught in reactivity. Joseph Goldstein often describes it as a lightness of mind. And the poet Audre Lorde writes, "The sharing of joy forms a bridge between the sharers, which can be the basis for understanding much of what is not shared." So in practice, joy reminds us that awakening is not grim. It includes delight in awareness itself. The fifth factor, tranquility. I've given up on the poly names at this point. As tranquility, as joy stabilizes, the mind naturally begins to settle and soften. So tranquility is the calming of both body and mind. The agitation of the nervous system quiets, thoughts become less insistent. Sharon Salzberg describes this beautifully. When the mind is calm, we begin to see things as they actually are. So tranquility creates the conditions for deeper insight. The sixth, concentration, samadhi. Concentration is the gathering of the mind into steadiness and stability. Attention becomes unified. So instead of scattering across many thoughts and sensations, awareness can rest more fully in the present. This isn't a rigid state, it's a collectedness of mind. The Thai forest teacher Ajahn Chah once said, "If you let go a little, you will have little peace. If you let go a lot, you will have a lot of peace." Concentration grows out of that letting go. And the last is equanimity, or upekkha. Equanimity is the quality of balance and spaciousness in the face of experience. It doesn't mean indifference. It means the mind is no longer thrown around by liking and disliking the waves of life experience. Pleasant experience will arise, and it will also pass. Unpleasant experiences will arise, and they will pass. And the mind can remain steady. Tara Brach writes, "Equanimity is the spaciousness that allows everything to be just as it is." Equanimity represents the maturity of practice, a mind that can meet life with clarity and care. And so taking these seven awakening factors, how do we cultivate them? One of the most important things that the Buddha taught about these qualities is that they can be cultivated. This is where the teaching becomes deeply practical. In meditation, we might recognize a moment of curiosity. We might experience some joy, a sense of calm. And at first, these moments are brief. They arise and disappear quickly. But the Buddha taught that recognition itself strengthens them. So when mindfulness notices an awakening factor, it tends to grow stronger. And over time, this becomes less about isolated moments and experiences in meditation and more about a shift in how we relate to life. We can notice these factors more easily throughout our day and our experiences. So cultivation means that the qualities we practice on the cushion begin to shape the mind more broadly. Curiosity begins to replace judgment. Calm begins to replace reactivity. And balance begins to replace grasping. The teacher, Sylvia Boorstein, often says, happiness is not about getting what you want. It's about cultivating a mind that can meet whatever arises. Cultivation means these qualities become traits rather than states of experience. They can show up in conversations, in our relationships, in conflict, in uncertainty. The poet Maya Angelou once wrote, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better." Practice works in much the same way. Each moment of mindfulness is small, but over time, these moments reshape the mind. Joseph Goldstein emphasizes that awakening is not a sudden leap into something foreign. It's the gradual strengthening of these wholesome qualities. A mind that becomes more curious, more energized, more joyful, calm, steady, balanced. In other words, awakening begins to look less like a distant goal and more like a way of being in the world. I'll leave you with this quote. Buddhist teacher Jackie Amaro writes, "Awakening is not somewhere else. It is the unfolding of wisdom within this very moment." Thank you for your time.